In every relationship, there's a subtle game being played, and few understand its rules. Relationships aren't always what they seem. Behind sweet words and gentle smiles, quiet psychological wars are waged, where the most violent forms of manipulation occur without a single drop of blood being spilled. Not every woman does this, but some master the art of indirect guidance, not to harm, but out of self-preservation, control, or even love in their own way. Stoicism doesn't deal with superficial moral judgments, it digs into the essence. What's happening? Why and how can the mind remain steady amid it all? This isn't an attack or a defense, it's an unveiling of a dark truth rarely spoken about. The relationship between a man and a woman isn't just shared feelings and exchanged words. It's a battlefield where psychological forces, hidden motives, and societal roles collide. Many men enter relationships with clear intentions and open hearts, unaware that the game isn't always played on a transparent board. In some relationships, rules are set without being stated. Messages are sent without words, and you might find yourself changing, compromising, or doubting yourself simply because you haven't learned to read the game. From a Stoic perspective, this complexity is inevitable. Marcus Aurelius said, "Understand what a thing truly is, strip away its embellishments." And that's what we'll do here. The unspoken tactics. Some women don't express their needs directly. Instead, they expect you to understand intentions, pick up hints, and test reactions. This isn't weakness or malice. It's a psychological tactic born from insecurity, fear of rejection, or a desire for control. For example, she might ask for something indirectly. When you don't comply, she won't blame you. She'll create distance. This distance isn't accidental, it's a calculated reaction. The danger? You might spiral into overcompensating to please her, losing yourself in the process. The Stoic doesn't overreact, rush, or take things personally. Instead, he steps back and observes the scene as if watching a play. Who's speaking? Who's pulling the strings? What's the goal of this scene? Understanding the game doesn't mean becoming cynical. It means realizing that good intentions alone aren't enough. There are invisible threads moving the relationship, and if you don't see them, they'll move you without your awareness. Silent emotional manipulation. Not all words are spoken, not all wars are declared. Some women never raise their voices or demand directly. But they master something far more dangerous, the art of silent emotional manipulation. This manipulation doesn't need shouting, a long silence at a critical moment, a glance heavy with unexplained disappointment, or a gradual withdrawal without warning. Suddenly, you feel guilty without knowing why. You dissect your last conversation, searching for the unmentioned mistake you're being punished for. Stoicism teaches us to pay attention to what isn't said, what doesn't show, what's hidden beneath a smile or soft reproach. Because a man who can't control his emotions becomes a puppet in another's hands, manipulated through pressure and suggestion. Let's be real. Some women won't say, "I want you to change." Instead, they withdraw emotionally, making your presence feel inadequate, without explanation. If you ask, the answer is, "Nothing's wrong," but you know something's off, and that's when your mind starts eroding. You convince yourself you're the problem. You try harder to please, to restore normalcy, but what is normal? The goalposts have moved and you didn't even notice. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The pain is not in the event, but in your judgment of it." That's the key to surviving silent manipulation. Don't surrender to quick internal judgments. Don't assume you're guilty every time silence falls. The invisible strength. Not all power is loud. Some women don't need to raise their voices or issue commands. They wield a different kind of control, quiet, invisible strength. This power isn't exercised through threats or conflict, but through presence, implication, and silent influence. She doesn't demand, she orchestrates events. She doesn't impose, she makes others choose what she wants voluntarily. You might think the relationship is balanced until you notice something strange. Every decision leans toward her preference. Every plan revolves around her schedule. Your sacrifices become expected routine, and slowly, you lose initiative without realizing it. This isn't coincidence. It's the result of what could be called unconscious feminine strategy. She doesn't chase the target directly. She creates it in your environment so you walk toward it alone. The Stoic doesn't blame or fear here. He observes. He knows there are many ways to exert influence, and the surface isn't the whole story. He trains himself to see behind the curtain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Examine every thought carefully. Ask yourself, is this truly mine, or was I gradually convinced of it?" When you find yourself altering principles for peace or sacrificing values just to keep things smooth, stop. You're not in a relationship, you're in a slow dissolution into another's will. A true Stoic doesn't reject influence, but he refuses to be reshaped unconsciously. He knows influence is always present, but what matters is, are you choosing or being led without knowing? Quiet strength shouldn't frighten you if you're aware of it. It can even be respected or met with equal poise, because this isn't a battle of wits, it's a test of awareness. Emotional blackmail under the guise of love. There's a kind of love that doesn't liberate, it restricts. It doesn't give security, it feeds anxiety. It's not real love. It's a cleverly disguised form of emotional blackmail wrapped in tenderness. You hear it in phrases like, "I thought you'd understand without me explaining. If you really loved me, you wouldn't act this way. I don't ask for much, just be what I want." On the surface, these seem harmless, but beneath, they're knives wrapped in roses because they burden you with guilt, making you believe every flaw in the relationship is your fault. Every pain the other feels is your shortcoming, even when no clear request was made. Emotional blackmail doesn't state its terms, it dumps full responsibility on your feelings. It makes you think twice before expressing an opinion, fearing you'll hurt her. It makes you afraid to say no because the response won't be dialogue, but silence, tears, or withdrawal. And here lies the real philosophical question. Is this love or a refined form of control? Stoicism doesn't recognize a love that makes a man lose himself. In the Stoic view, love is a bond between two free people, each respecting the other's boundaries, each with the right to say yes or no without being vilified. Marcus Aurelius said, "No one can steal your inner peace unless you let them." Emotional blackmail does exactly that. It steals your peace in the name of love. The solution isn't violent confrontation or sudden withdrawal, it's awareness. Realizing you're not measured by your ability to please and that healthy relationships aren't built on chronic guilt, but on real communication. Don't be the man who fears losing the other so much that he loses himself. The silent test. How some women test you without saying a word. Not all tests come as questions. Some women don't need to ask, Do you love me? Or will you choose me? They simply observe, through ambiguous situations, silence in moments of tension, and watch how you react. The silent test is one of the most dangerous psychological tactics because it's undeclared. It throws you into a scenario, then judges the outcome. Will you get angry? Will you take initiative? Will you abandon your principles? Will you submit? Example, you reply late to a message and are met with cool detachment, no explanation. Or you act naturally only to be met with coldness, as if you've committed a crime. Then you're left alone to overthink, analyze, and crumble. This kind of testing isn't always malicious. Sometimes it stems from fear, need for reassurance, or subconscious patterns. But as a conscious man, you're not obligated to prove yourself every time a hidden test is thrown your way. The Stoic doesn't react immediately or rush to answer. He recognizes that any demand made in shadows must be considered in the light. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't let others' judgments become commands within you." That's exactly what happens in these tests. Your reaction becomes a surrender because you assume her approval is the standard. But what if she's testing your boundaries? What if she wants to see how far she can influence you, not for reassurance, but for control? A man who knows his worth isn't afraid of tests, but he doesn't participate in every test. His dignity isn't measured by compliance, but by steadiness under pressure. The Stoic listens to what's behind the silence, but he doesn't answer every silence with self-abasement. Because he understands. Real relationships aren't built on confusion, but on clarity. And if there's no clear communication, the silence isn't your responsibility. When your emotions are used against you, one of the biggest mistakes sincere men make is assuming that anyone who shows emotion is genuine. But the hard truth? Some women don't use emotions to communicate, they weaponize them. She doesn't yell, insult, or attack directly. Instead, she targets your conscience. When you're happy about something, she makes you feel guilty for not including her. When you set boundaries, she implies you don't love her like before. When you express fatigue, she twists it into neglect. Every step outside her control is met with a strong emotional reaction. Sudden tears, dramatic withdrawal, prolonged silence. All of it screams one thing: get back in line, or I'll make you feel like you're hurting me. This is the other face of toxic femininity. Not the loud, domineering kind, but the quiet one that uses your deepest emotions against you. Marcus Aurelius said, "When empathy becomes a weapon, your noblest trait becomes your weakness." The Stoic doesn't abandon his emotions, but he doesn't let them be used as chains. A balanced man isn't ashamed of love, but he won't let it turn him into prey in the name of tenderness. Ask yourself, are my emotions respected or exploited? Is my vulnerability embraced or weaponized? A relationship that makes you walk on eggshells isn't love, it's an emotional prison with an open door. You don't leave because guilt holds you back. The Stoic man doesn't cut ties impulsively. He reflects, observes, and decides from clarity, not confusion. Because he knows real emotions don't threaten or manipulate. Silence doesn't mean weakness. When a woman goes silent, the real game begins. Not all silence is peaceful. Sometimes it's the highest form of strategy. You might think she's given up, tired, or indifferent, but in truth, she's repositioning. In tense relationships, when a woman suddenly stops complaining, questioning, or explaining, don't celebrate. This silence isn't acceptance, it's regrouping. This is the silence before the attack or the strategic withdrawal. A cold war, undeclared but meticulously waged. Some women know that speaking can weaken their position, so they retreat, creating an emotional vacuum that makes you overthink, panic, and chase. And that's when the real game starts. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Quietness is the most powerful weapon when no one expects it." That's where soft control begins, because once you chase the silence, you've fallen into the trap. But the Stoic doesn't treat silence as a threat. He doesn't rush, panic, or interpret it as an invitation to self-doubt. He sees it as an opportunity to reflect. Is this silence healthy or part of a game? A real man isn't afraid of silence because he's at peace with himself first. He doesn't chase reassurance, he creates it within. If the silence is a mind game, he won't play, because he knows strong relationships aren't built on ambiguity but on honesty, not on maneuvers but on transparency. Once you understand you can't go back, there comes a moment when you review every detail, every conversation, every emotional spike, and you arrive at a terrifying truth few dare to face. You weren't stupid, just pure in an arena where emotions are wielded as weapons. You thought love was repaid with love, honesty with respect, emotion with emotion. But reality taught you, some hearts don't want to love, they want to control. Some women don't seek a man to cherish, but one to submit. At this point, you either break or awaken. The man who awakens doesn't become heartless. He realizes that emotion without awareness is self-destruction. And true strength isn't about lacking a heart, but having one that can't be used against you. Stoicism doesn't tell you not to love. It tells you not to place your love where you're required to erase yourself to prove you deserve to stay. After this, you'll change. You won't reply hastily. You won't chase ambiguous silence. You won't apologize for your clarity. You won't bargain with your dignity. You'll smile, but you won't get close to anyone who mistakes calmness for weakness. You'll love, but you won't place your heart on the table as proof of vulnerability. You'll give, but with boundaries. Because you'll know, those who don't value your presence won't search for you in your absence. Once you understand the game, you won't play. Once you see the truth, you can't go back. Now it's your turn. Understanding the game is the first step. But what will you do with this knowledge? Reflect. Are you in a relationship that empowers you or one that demands you shrink yourself? Observe. Start noticing the unspoken rules, the silent tests, the quiet manipulations. Awareness is your armor. Choose. Will you keep playing by hidden rules or rewrite them with clarity, self-respect, and boundaries? Stoicism teaches control over one thing above all: yourself. Don't wait for permission to reclaim your peace. Take action today. Pause the next time you feel guilt without cause. Question the motives behind silence or emotional withdrawal. Decide, will you stay in a dynamic that trades your authenticity for harmony? The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. Thoreau, what's your next move?